Well, it's December here in Indiana, and while we haven't had that cold weather yet or that snowfall, we are in the late season. And as a deer manager and a habitat manager, we should start to shift our focus from hunting and doe harvest over to off-season management. One of our biggest concerns is carrying our deer herd through the winter into the spring. Is our habitat and thermal cover up to par? Do we have enough food and the right type of food on this property? And have we killed enough does to let that food last? There's a lot weighing on our mind this time of year, especially if we have a buck that we want to see live to next season. One of the biggest and most commonly asked questions we answer as biologists and consultants here at the Buck Advisors is, what food plot species should I plant specifically for the late season? What food plot species meets all the nutritional requirements a deer needs in January and February into March that can get a deer herd through the winter into spring? And while every property and every situation is different, there are two giants that are competing for the best late season and winter food sources: beans and corn. Now, here in the Midwest, and especially more so for the northern states, we all know the deer are wore thin after the rut. Bucks can lose up to 30% of their own body weight in the rut and throughout the winter, so it's extremely important for deer to find a sustainable late season food source on your property that meets and fulfills all the nutritional requirements to get them through winter and into the spring. It's no secret that they target carbohydrates in late October and early November in the form of acorns, and then even later as in cut cornfields, searching for corn to build carbohydrates to build fat reserves for the upcoming winter. So for some, this immediately validates planting every single tillable acre, every single food plot in corn. Because they think it's the best late season food source. They have good experiences in November with cornfields. But here at the Buck Advisors, we beg to differ. We think soybeans are far more beneficial for your deer. Now, to argue this point, we have to trace all the way back to the beginning of the year into spring when corn and soybeans are getting planted. As soon as a bean goes in the ground and germinates, it's available to the deer right when it needs to be. It offers protein levels at 25 to 35%, and does are lactating at this time with fawns. Bucks are using the protein for antler growth and muscle development. So as soon as the bean goes on the ground, as soon as it germinates, it's useful for the deer. Now, corn offers cover, and that's really important for a property without a lot of cover, but they can't be really useful for the deer until later into the season. Now, as August and September roll around, we all know where we want to be: over a bean field, scouting for velvet bucks, or trying to develop a pattern on a mature buck. And once the season starts to progress, we all kind of look over to Kentucky to start us off in the season with their early opening date to see what kind of velvet monsters are coming out of there. But as we transition into October, if we can't catch a mature buck still on its pattern in those bean fields, it's still a great early season stand location to harvest some does and get our doe quota for the year. And as we roll further into October, we, being both the deer hunters and the bucks, seem to take the focus off the food sources and put them back on the does, on funnels and bedding areas, as the doe kind of get off the food sources and hide from the bucks in those bedding areas, or they're getting chased all over Kingdom Come across your property. So that brings us back to the late season. So while corn is higher in carbohydrates, if both food sources are available side to side on one property, in most situations, deer preference will be for the soybeans. So from a deer manager's and hunter's perspective, a bean plot is definitely the way to go. It's a bigger bang for your buck. Corn is expensive on your wallet and the soil. So if you're looking to do a food plot specifically for the late season, definitely go with beans. It's far more advantageous for you to do that as a hunter and a deer manager, especially when you're on a budget. Now, for those of you that think you're lacking a late season food source whatsoever, then you might be in trouble this winter. So make sure you stick with us in this series as we dive into the off season and we show you everything that you could possibly do for your herd and habitat management.